What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the YBA. Today you are about to see one of the most advanced tutorials, maybe one of the last ones that you're going to find yourself needing, because we're going to take you from the very beginning until the very end, and I'm going to show you how I created this look. To start this off with, I need you guys to go and grab something that men have engineered pretty much everything in existence since the dawn of time with, and that's going to be a pen and a piece of paper. Trust me, it's going to help you lock it in. We're going to go through clipper manipulation. We're going to go through the process. We're going to go through literally every single step from the scissor work to the common fails and flaws, and make sure that your roadmap is identical to my roadmap so that we can make sure that you guys are able to follow along and do what it is I do. I promise you, when you go back into the shop the very next day, or you go back into school, or you attack your next haircut, some of this stuff is going to change the way that you work going forward. And for a short period of time, I'm going to leave this video public, but this is actually a membership video. And if you guys want to sign up to my membership where I could do more advanced tutorial content like this, do me a favor and check that out. Let's get started with a fade diagram. We have some clippers, we have some guards, and if you guys are beginners, the rogue combo is a really difficult thing to beat. I'm going to explain why in a minute, but let's start out with drawing a nice big circle on your piece of paper. Doesn't have to be perfect. I can't lean forward or I'm going to get the camera. I'll get in the way of the camera, but we're going to put a number 2 on top. From number 2 and higher, we're going to use a lot of clipper over comb and shear over comb, which we're going to get into in this video. And then on the very bottom of our circle, skin. Now, some of you may have some idea of what I'm about to do, but if you haven't seen me do a fade diagram, I really do suggest that you stick around. So if I had a client walk in and they told me to take a number 2 all the way around the head, anybody sitting out there right now, whether you went to school or not, you guys would be able to shave somebody's head with a number 2. I have confidence in you. The problem starts when we want to fade into a number 2, something lower going into a number 2. What guard could I take into this number 2 if I stopped before this line that would not create a line? Theoretically speaking, the answer would be the 1.5, but in the open position. So if I put this 1.5 on and I flick this to the open position, I'm going to cut the longest length that this clipper can with this guard attached. If I come here and I put 1.5 open, that means as long as I stop when I get about to the number 2, I'm not going to create a line. Now, the very next step down, what could I shave the bottom of the head with again? The answer would be a 1.5 closed, as long as I stopped before I hit this line. What could I do going into the next one? Number 1 in the open position. So we'll put 1 open, 1 closed. The next thing that I would do would be a 0 open. Now this guard could be referred to as a few different things. It could be considered the half, it could be considered the 0, it could people could call it the 1/16 if you're doing fractions, or it's the 1.5 millimeter. We're gonna call it a 0 just to make it easy, and we're gonna say 0 open, 0 closed. This is when it gets a little complicated, and we're gonna zoom into this next couple parts here. But the next step would obviously be just open, closed, and then I have my trimmer line. That's why I wanted to make this circle big. And then below that, I would have skin. These are all the steps that are going to be needed to accomplish most, if any, type of fading. So if I did this for everybody, it would obviously take way too long. So we all develop systems within this. The reason why I wanted you guys to fill this out and to do this is because when I work with a class and we get towards the end of a haircut, they usually nail a lot of it just right, but they're like, hey Ed, I got a little line here. What do you think is going to get it out? I can't be there looking over your shoulder all the time telling you what's going to fix your work. You have to be able to self-diagnose your work. So what this is for is at the end of your haircut, you could say, well, I think it's a 1. I could grab the step above, I could grab the step below, and you could troubleshoot on your own. That's what this diagram is useful for. Let's zoom in on the most difficult part of the haircut. Let's break this down now. We have our harshest line yet, and that is the one that we put in with the trimmer. We'll call that this line right here, just to make things easy. And we go to an open taper here. So we're going to set in that first guideline. All the way to here, that's open taper. Now, this in the open position is not going to remove this line. So one of the reasons why your clipper is not going to remove your trimmer line is because a trimmer will literally put the line in all the way down to a 0.17 millimeter. That's a really close cut. So that makes a lot less work for the electric shaver. And that's why you'll see a lot of barbers putting in their line with the trimmer. Now that sword cuts both ways, because as easy as that makes it for this, that's also going to make it a little more difficult to remove. There are certain clients where you're not going to mind to do that with, but as a general rule of thumb, I typically don't do this. And I'm going to show you why in this particular haircut. I got to get all these steps done in such a short amount of space that I'm not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to use some clipper manipulation, which we're going to get into in just a few minutes. So if I was to put my line in at that 0.17 millimeters line, I'm going to be able to use my electric shaver very efficiently underneath. I'm going to go up very close to the line, and I'm going to start flicking up and away. I'm going to start tapping down, going with the grain, and I'm going to kind of do my best to not create any line between where I went with my electric shaver and my trimmer. You're going to notice in the video, I'm actually using JRL's new electric shaver. They sent it to me. There's a couple of cool things going on with this. I'm actually going to do a full review on that product, but today I'm actually going to give it away to one of my guys in the comment section, but you have to be a member. So if you sign up and you become a member, you could wind up being the recipient of this, but members only are going to be eligible to win that shaver today. As I said, this is a members only video. I'm going to release it to the public for a short time. Then bam, we're going to make it private again, because YouTube is not going to like the fact that I took this much time to explain to you guys everything there is to do with a haircut. Now, one way that I could attack this, I always want to make sure that I got my clipper blade kind of horizontal as I come up the side of the head to set my guides accurately, like you're seeing in this video. When it comes time to fade, the moment I begin fading, I want to hold my blade on a slight angle. So one way we could do it is we could down fade it. And these clippers, the Rogues and many of the Gamma clippers, I think all of them, have clicks on them. So I could click this only one time, and I could go up just underneath where I went with that open taper. I could click it again, go just underneath where I went in the previous step. Click it again, just underneath where I went with the previous step. Click it again all the way, and I can move into it. The way that I would typically be doing this was with it one click closed. I'm going to go through the whole section, close it a little bit, stay a little bit lower, close it a little bit, stay a little bit lower, until I buff out the majority of this line. Once this line is gone, you're going to probably see a faint trace of your trimmer line left over, only if you didn't do a good job blending from skin to trimmer. And you will only be able to accomplish this only if your tools are set up correctly. And that's why we got to talk about zero gapping for just a second. One of the reasons why I need to set my blades a little closer is because 0.17 millimeters is very, very close to the scalp. So I need these two machines to be able to work closely together. Any barber who's accomplished a lot in this game, who actually has a lot of clients, who wants to make life easy on themselves, most barbers have like 3 clippers, 2 or 3 trimmers. And there's a reason for that. It's not like we just want a whole bunch of stuff sitting around on our station. One of them we have set really close for doing things like this. And one of the trimmers we want set back so that we can actually put a less harsh skin line in, or maybe we can do a lineup on a kid. We can use that when we're troubleshooting our blend towards the end, as you're going to see in phase 6. And one of our clippers, we want it set zero gap. We want to have a fade or a vapor blade on there. And the other one, we might want to have a taper blade, or we might even want to have another fade blade, but we don't set it as close. That's going to give you the ability to hit every length that you need to. All right, so now we've handled the most difficult part of the skin fade, and that's that area there. Now, we don't necessarily have to do this in this order, and especially not when there's a client like this who wants to keep their hair super long on top, sectioning it out above the parietal ridge, handling this blend. I want to keep it dark over here. A lot of barbers overdo this area. They just want to keep chasing the clipper up higher and higher until they make everybody look like, you know, kind of like a cone head. And that's not good. That's not what a barber should be doing. A barber should be paying attention to the shape of a client's head and trying to make their face look more oval and trying to build out a little bit of weight around this area. I typically, especially in a case like this, would like to start now moving from the top down. And that's where you're going to see me equip the number 2 to my clipper. I'm actually going to put that in the open position. And I see a lot of you guys moving so quick. You know, you see good, accomplished barbers who are skilled, but the truth is you do not need to be moving so quick. You can literally move at a snail's pace and watch the hair come off and see what you're doing. Be very thorough. That'll give the machine time to cut. That'll give you time to stop before you make a mistake. And really everything is going to start to fall into place for you. So as we go through this process a little bit further, I want you to understand that the speed will come and we need to be thorough because we don't want to be playing like whack-a-mole at the end of the haircut trying to fix 1,000 different mistakes. We want to have minimal amounts of cleanup work to do in our phase 6 because we have other things to do in phase 6. So in our phase 1 bulk removal step, you're going to see that I'm going to clip off all the hair right at the parietal ridge. I'm going to comb through and I'm going to see what's going on with his hair. Is there anything I need to be worried about? Is there a colic? Is there, like, this is the time that we use my FADE acronym. The F stands for find out what the client wants, be thorough, ask questions. Then we go to A, analyze. I'm looking for any issues that it's going to cause me in the future going forward. One of the reasons why I didn't remove the bulk with, like, say a 2 or a 3, because I was concerned about being able to stack that weight. I need to get this blend done in a short amount of time. I need to save some weight here so that that long hair on top that really doesn't blend into this area, that it actually looks good. One of the ways that I decided to do that in this particular case was I actually took my clipper, I flipped it upside down. This is not gonna be a harsh line. It's gonna be really easy to get out. And I used my clipper as though it was a trimmer. And then on the follow-up, you're going to see that I reverse the clipper. I'm gonna come just underneath that and I'm going to kind of clean up that space. So there's my closed taper line. That's where I went up and I created that bulk, right? Now my goal is to take this trimmer as close as I can, scooping up and out before I hit that line because I don't want to create that really harsh line. And if I've done this correctly, it's going to be minimal. The amount of work that we do at the end is going to be minimal. The skin line is going to come out easy and I'm going to be able to run my electric shaver. And that takes us into phase 2. This is something that's going to save you guys a ton of time. And I really don't know how else I could possibly do a haircut like this without using some clipper over comb. When it comes to clipper over comb, I obviously have an entire lesson on this, but we're gonna break down some of this right now. One of the first things I want you guys to do is I want you guys to show me how you're holding your comb. If you're holding your comb like this, that doesn't give us a whole lot of range of motion, right? And it doesn't let me lift it up and away from the scalp in the way that I need to. What I wanna see you guys do is actually pinch the comb on this side. And it really doesn't make a difference which comb you use. I actually like that big wide one that JRL sent me. That's a nice comb. The Zuka combs are probably my favorite. They're a little bit skinnier. They're very flexible. And above all, we need to make sure that we don't have too many teeth in the comb because that makes it kind of hard for you to sink it in there. But here's the motions that we want to learn. First one is with the comb. We want to hold it here so that I can twist this. Now look at this. I can twist this completely like 180 degrees without any issue. I want to be able to do that. And the second step is, how do we want to hold the clipper? We can hold the clipper in the handshake grip. When we're working lower on the head, I can hold it in the handshake grip. This is comfortable. Once I get up here, it's not comfortable no more. Now, I'm kind of bending my wrist on a weird angle. I want to flip over to the pencil grip. Once I get to the pencil grip, now I can knock out all them areas. But for the sake of this particular haircut, all I'm actually doing is holding it still. I'm literally setting it on the line. I'm tipping it out a little bit. I know the fade's not gonna be perfect here. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to build something of a connection into that top area so that I can keep that darkness. And now I'm just gonna minimally work this out with guards, whatever is left over. And you're gonna see I'm gonna hop back to clipper over comb and I'm also gonna hop back to shear over comb. So with the shear over comb, exact same concept applies here. I'm going to be able to just move the bottom part of my thumb, keeping that bottom, oh, I almost cut myself. I'm going to move my thumb only. I'm not chomping like this. I'm going to move my thumb only, and because that's going to be able to ride right along the bottom part of the comb, and I'm going to be able to be really accurate. This is a lot more detailed than clipper over comb, and you know, you might even see me using this because I'm really quick with my shears, and I'm able to just dive into those spots and knock those out. However, when I'm trying to remove a lot of hair, it's almost, you know, always gonna be the clipper over comb. I'm setting it in there, I'm gently cutting, and I'm lifting it out. And there are times where I'm just gonna literally hold it still, tip it off the side of the head, and I'm gonna move the clipper actually horizontally up the side of the head. And that's just to bump off any little funny stuff that I'm not able to get like this. And you need to be moving kind of slow here in the beginning. Make sure that you don't actually let it slide off the comb and create another issue. Now, this just barely grazes the surface on clipper over comb, but I use this in phase 2, and it's actually technically part of phase 1. All we're doing so far is just bulk removal. You might see me stop like I did here and begin the clipper over comb, and then go back to the steps where I'm using, you know, the trimmer and then the electric shaver. This is not designed to be used absolutely in order every single time. This is designed as a way for me to communicate to you what I'm doing. I know when you guys are thinking of doing too many things, you're going to feel a lot of anxiety. You're thinking of, oh my God, I got to do the edge up. I got to cut the top. I got to do the fade. I got to get this right, that right. No, you don't. Stay in your lane, stay in your phase, and just realize that all I'm trying to do here is put this skin line in. And I'm going to make sure it's balanced. I'm going to use my mirror. All I'm trying to do now is work my electric shaver. This is the only thing you need to think about. This is a really departmentalized approach that's going to make this easier for you. So as I go up to the side of the head now, I'm using that electric shaver, I'm flicking out, and I'm making that blend happen. Now we're gonna try some clipper manipulation. And in a haircut like this, I think it's actually pretty important. This is not something you're going to have to do for your run-of-the-mill average haircut, average fade. And don't be like thinking that because you're brand new, don't think that you gotta jump in and you gotta do a skin fade right away. You can do this at a longer length. You could set this initial guideline in at a 1 and perfect that. I mean, I was perfecting my number 2 on the back and side, scissors on top for like a year before I bothered with skin fades. Getting that connection to the top is so important and it takes so much time to learn. And once you have your tools set up correctly and you understand how they work together, it's actually pretty easy to do the blend as well. So don't put a bunch of unnecessary pressure on yourself to, like, I got to go down to skin right away. Like you don't. You can build off of this. I think there's something strong and that momentum that you're going to build mentally, feeling like you can do it, and you can do it, man. Anybody can learn this. This isn't rocket science. And when it comes to the anxiety part about this, I just want you to keep in mind, you're not doing heart surgery. Nobody is going to die if you mess up a haircut. It's okay. You can make mistakes and you can rebound from them. And if you're like, oh my God, if I mess up one client, I'll be ruined. He'll tell everybody. It don't matter. Your business isn't built off of one person. Even if they're dissatisfied with you, they're probably just not going to go to you again. And that's fine. You're going to need time to get these reps in. So let's break down some of the different clipper manipulation, and I'll run some of it on the screen while I'm doing it. Let's start with the C motion. So when I'm doing the C motion, I want to hold my clipper something like this. I actually kind of like to balance my thumb, and this is the easiest clipper in the world to do this with. The Ergo was almost designed with this in mind. So if you notice, I got a lot of space here. So one of the ways I might do it is moving in a C motion to begin creating that blend. And you guys can see that little C motion that I'm making, and bam, that's one way I can do it. If you're doing this carefully, you will start to soften up some of the guidelines above the section you're working in, and it might make your life easier. So I would practice on a mannequin. You can literally sit here with a mannequin that's bald and you can kind of get this feel for coming off of the head. You can turn it on while you do it. You can kind of feel what it's going to feel like. Mannequins are a little sticky, a little tacky. It's actually going to slide a lot better on a real client, but just get that little rep in. Now, here comes one of the big secrets, all right? The clipper lifter. All right, this is something I do all the time, especially when it comes to doing tapers, low fades, and in this particular fade. You're going to notice that I tip the butt end of the clipper out and I cut with only the teeth lifting. Now what that does is that's actually getting me pretty far away from the head. We need to start softening that line above, and you're going to see with me keeping this out here, I'm leaving the hair longer. As I lower this butt end down, it's cutting closer and closer until it's flat. And when they're flat, they're going to cut their best. Most students, one of the critical fails that I would see time and time again when I teach classes in person, when I taught as a barber instructor, people leave the head too much. I'm telling you to do this. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's not much of an exaggeration. A lot of newer people are afraid to leave it on the scalp and anchor it. They're afraid to just move back and forth. It doesn't cut on the downstroke. The closer that we angle this down, the closer it's going to cut. So now we're actually going to put some of this together. We have the lift, tip, and flick. So we can lift the clipper, tip the clipper on an angle, and we can flick. If I want to get further away, look, I got the butt end sticking out. Now, if I want to get closer, I now have it on an angle. I'm literally cutting with only a few teeth, and then I'm going to lower it down little by little, and you're going to be surprised at what you can accomplish with this. One of the hardest tools to develop in barbering is your eyes. Once your eyes can see where the problems are, you can go to them and you can fix them. And that's something that's difficult to teach. That's something that comes with repetition. As we talked about in my fade diagram, when I'm putting in guidelines, I typically like to see the blade horizontal. I want to make a nice straight line across the head to the best of my ability. When I am blending, you'll almost always see that my clipper is always on an angle, especially when I'm blending out that skin section. I'm literally only using like 2 or 3 teeth on the blade to do that. And I'm also making sure that I use the right tool. There are so many times that I switch over to a taper blade. As soon as I'm done with that bottom skin line, I don't need a fade blade. I don't want to make another mistake. And we're going to talk about when you're likely to make a mistake a little further in the video. So let's crawl through this blend real quick, and I'm just going to show you this side. I am tipping the butt end out. I'm using my C motion, and I'm beginning my horizontal guideline. Right now, I'm not necessarily blending. I'm actually just setting in a bit of a guideline. And if you notice how good it's doing of a job at softening that bottom skin line, that trimmer, that closed taper line, it's going to be so easy to get out because I didn't put it in super harsh. Now, as I told you before, I want to keep the weight. So I want to use a number 2 at this point. I'm using the tight guards in this. I have a number 2, and I actually have it in the closed position because I'm using the C motion. I'm sort of putting in like another soft guideline. And if you notice, having previously done my clipper over comb, that number 2 is really starting to blend into that. So I'm gonna bump back and forth to my clipper over comb, and I wanna see a really nice connection into that top. So I know where I'm starting from and I know where I'm going to. And I think that's gonna make anybody who does this, that's gonna make it a lot easier. So jumping back into my clipper over comb section, I'm able to work that out. Next step, we're gonna go to the 1. Now I am blending. I'm lift, tip, and flick right now. I have this open, usually halfway. Most of the time when I approach with the number 1, I take the clipper and I literally will click it just 2 clicks down. 1, 2. That's halfway open. That gives me a good idea what the guard's gonna do without cutting too close. And I'm able to sort of see how it's going to blend into that number 2. Notice I did skip the 1.5. I have these tools in my arsenal. I'm going to pull them out as I need them, but I'm not going to just go to them for the sake of going to them because I'm following my eyes. I'm following what my canvas needs by the judgment that I'm using with my eyes. I see where there's dark spots. I see where there's issues, and I'm going in there and I'm trying above all to build a really nice connection into the top because I know this kid's hair is so fine. I know that if I get this area too short, this is over. I'm not going to have a really good blend and I'm going to wind up having some issues. So one of the last steps I'm going to do before I start working with my open taper, closed taper is now I have my half guard. I always save the half guard for the very end. I try to do everything I can leading up to it, and I only use the half guard when I need to. If you look at this fade chart, you're going to see there's actually a little bit of an overlap between my open taper and my half guard. If you don't understand, it's okay, but all that really means is that a half guard in the open position is actually going to leave the haircut longer than a 1 guard when you have the clipper closed. So what that kind of means is I don't want to get myself in trouble with that guard. It can really make or break a haircut, so I try to use it sparingly during these haircuts. So now what you're going to see, I'm going into the 1 to 2 to 3 teeth method. Sometimes you're going to see that the clipper looks like it's horizontal, but only one side of the blade is actually down at a time. Only one side of the blade or the other side of the blade, or it's on an angle altogether. I'm using the tipping out. I'm also tipping it out or lowering it down based on what the haircut needs. And I'm kind of standing in the way of the camera, so I'm sorry about that. This is one of the things that's difficult to film tutorials because I like to cut hair, literally, with it right in front of my chest. Well, if there's a big camera there, then I'm off to the side and I'm doing all this weirdness. It can be really difficult to do your best work when you're standing in ways that you typically wouldn't. So typically, you'd want to see your canvas positioned directly in front of you, and that's gonna reduce strain. Your elbow's not gonna be out here. You're not gonna be doing weird things. You need to be ergonomic about this. This is not gonna be a full-blown edge up on this particular kid. I just seen that was, all that hair was overhanging, and I wanted to see what my blend's gonna look like when I have that edge up sort of roughed out, outlined, and ready to go. One of the things too is like there is a portion in time that I've designated for myself in phase 6 to detail my blend. I want to get it as close as possible to done as I can before I get to that point. At the same time, I don't have to agonize about every little detail right now. I just want to make sure I'm thorough and I get it done the best that I can. So on this side of the haircut, I decided to use the Rebel. I was kind of doing a shootout between the Rebel and the Instinct. And honestly, these two are such great machines. Both of them are fantastic. But I gotta say, man, the instinct is it's just a tool that's very difficult to beat. Let's talk about the edge up for a second. Just like using the clippers, if I have this tipped out, I'm moving the cutting blade further away from the skin, and I'm less likely to irritate the client's skin, and my trimmer might not cut as close. As I angle this closer, I could irritate the skin because I'm resting the cutting blade directly on the skin. It's important that you have a set of these set really close, especially for these edge ups. It's going to make your life easier. Now, the Rogue coming with this X Pro blade, this is the same thing that comes on the best-selling trimmer, which has been the Saber. This is the same thing that comes on that, and these cut so close to the Saber. The fact that you're getting both of these in this Rogue combo for so cheap, it's a really hard combination to beat. When I'm doing an edge up, there's typically a few different ways I hold it. One is the handshake grip with it upside down, and I'm going to show you guys some anchoring techniques that I use when I'm doing this. So one of the anchoring techniques, left hand on the top of the head, because I'm right-handed. My middle finger, I'm not flipping you off, at least not all of you, and I'm gonna rest it on the bridge of his nose, and I'm going to angle, bang, bang, bang. This allows me to stay very steady, even when my hands feel a little bit shaky. You're not gonna always have your best up every day. The difference is anchoring and using techniques that generate consistency allow you to perform the same haircut over and over again and give your clients a great service. So if I look at this mannequin and I see that his edge up is really high over here and it's very low over here, right? Let's just pretend that these black lines are his hairline. If I start over here, that means I'm gonna have to clear out all this hair in the interior, and he's gonna look bad because that haircut's gonna grow back so fast. He's gonna have little hairs starting to grow back. So when you have this situation, you always need to make sure that you start on the low side. So on the low side, I don't have to obsess over perfection. Personally, I would rather have somebody not push me back that far. I'd rather have my edge up be a little bit off. That's perfectly fine. Now, when you have clients that got good hair, it doesn't matter where you start. Start in the middle, work your way out to one side, work your way out to the other, use your mirror. I do think there's something funny about these edge ups is it seems like students would grasp the concept of performing a good edge up pretty quickly, and it's something that just requires you to go back. You got to go back a few times over and over again. When we get into the corner sections, here and here, this is where it can be a little bit difficult, and a lot of you guys forget that you have a pair of scissors that can work really well for this section. So I can actually lay the scissors right in there on the vertical bar, and I can cut a little bit of a notch here and here. I can lay my scissors in right here on the edge up of the corner. Once I have a good balanced edge up coming down, I also do not need to obsess over perfection in the vertical bars. Some people have a lot of hair here. Me, personally, I don't. You'd have to push my hair back pretty far to get that. So when I get to the C-cups, you're always gonna have a dominant side when it comes to the C-cups. One thing I see you guys doing a lot is you guys like to kind of tap, 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 tap over and over again, and that's creating a bunch of different lengths. It's a lot better if you take your finger, you're gonna anchor it right here on their cheek, and you're gonna move in a circular motion. I actually like to do this in one circular motion. I find that that actually helps me stay more accurate. It gives me a better, more consistent cut, and it happens a little bit faster. So when I go through the C-cups on the dominant side, very easy for me to start from the bottom. I'm just hooking those hairs into the trimmer. The X Pro blade does a great job of picking them up. But when I get to this side, this is when it's a little bit harder. So I'm gonna have to actually do the same thing, but I just do it in reverse. It's the exact same thing. I can start from the bottom, work my way up, and it all depends on how the hair's laying. Sometimes I'm gonna have to start from the top, and I will have to chip away at it, getting it all the way down. So it's really what the hair and the canvas presents. I try to make good, thorough, smooth moves with the trimmer, and I find that that leads to greater outcomes. And that's exactly how I'm gonna anchor all around the front of the face and the head, that I could be consistent. And anchoring and consistency are one of the things that are really gonna set you apart when you're doing your edge ups. If you guys do what I've seen a lot of people in school do, they'll almost be standing back here and they're coming in, trimmer's completely unsteady, and they're bam, just try to hit it. Like, that's never gonna be as steady as a person whose elbow is closer to their body. Their left hand is on the head because that steadies them, and that also tells you if the client's gonna tip or move or sneeze or anything like that. And then the other part is you can anticipate those movements right away and get your hand out of the way. And the other part is getting the back part of your knuckle or wherever you feel comfortable. And then one of my favorite holds across the head is actually the pencil grip. And a lot of times you'll see me balance it right on the client's nose, and I'm able to just barely move my hand. This is such a great accuracy move. I absolutely love doing this. I can kind of look at the mirror while I'm doing it, and it's something that, you know, it takes a little bit of practice. That's pretty much the edge up in a nutshell, and that's actually considered phase 5. So let's rewind the tape and let's go back to phase 3, which I've designated phase 3 to be cutting the top. I like to set in the skin line, and I like to cut the top before I do the blend. I think it makes sense to know where you're starting from and know where you're going to. In this particular case, he has a perm on top. His hair is going to be really long. There's going to be a point where his hair does not blend in to the sides, and I need to make it appear to do so to the best that I can. So cutting the top was not a priority in this client's case. However, in many of my other clients' cases, it will be. So that's why phase 3 is phase 3. It usually happens that order. Phase 4 would be the blend. Phase 5 is the edge up and the razor work, which we didn't even cover yet, but we'll get there. Let's break down how to really cut the top. And since you guys are members, we're gonna call this phase 3 F the BS. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of bullshit education going on about scissors. They make it so difficult. They make it so complicated. They section it a million different ways. They hold it and direct it a million. None of that is necessary. I've been cutting hair for what? It's been 22 years. I've been cutting hair, and most of the time I use this incredibly easy, basic technique to cut the top. And I know that you guys are gonna use it, and I know that you guys are gonna find it super easy. Top down view. And I'm gonna show you guys the mohawk section. Mohawk section, boom, boom. So what you're going to see me do is I'm always going to cut that mohawk section. I usually try to make this no wider than the width of my comb. And when I hold it up, I'm going to cut it. So what's going to happen here, if we do a top view, so let's just pretend that this is the top of the hair and all the hair is sticking up like this. Once I cut that section, when I hold this portion of the hair up right here, you're going to see that there's an area that needs to be cut right here. On this side of the hair, when I hold this section up, you're going to see there's an area that needs to be cut right here. As I do that, look what winds up happening. I'm actually creating a bigger guideline. So what you're seeing here, guys, is the top-down view looking here. I actually have the mohawk and everything drawn out on this mannequin, but it's going to be a little bit easier for me to show you on the board. And then we're also looking at this view, and that's what you're seeing on the top portion here, just so that you guys follow me. And it's very important. The only thing that's important that makes this super easy is that we're holding this out 90 degrees. So you see this comb? It's sticking out 90 degrees, no matter where I put it. If I put it over here, it's 90 degrees. If I'm holding hair that grows from here and I'm directing it this way, well, once it comes back here, there's gonna be parts that are too long and it's not gonna be accurate. So you just wanna make sure that you're holding it out straight from where it grows. That's how simple that's the beauty of this. That's how simple this is. What I typically will do is I'll work off the center section and I'll work to one of the sides all the way down, all the way down. Now I've got this big wide guide, gets super easy to follow. I'll pick these up, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, all the way around the head until I basically have a perfect 90-degree haircut, which a 90-degree haircut is what 90% of the people are going to want. 90 degrees just means that if I cut this perfectly, it's gonna mimic the exact same shape as the scalp for the most part. As I go down the sides, I could still be holding hair off. I could still be holding hair off the sides, moving down. If the haircut was long and I needed to do an entire haircut with the shear and comb method, it could be so simple. All we're really doing is if we got this mohawk guideline, we're gonna cut that mohawk guideline, then we're gonna section in that hair just to the side, but I'm actually going to pick it up horizontally like this. Now I got my guide, now I got my cut. Now I pick this up, this next section. A little bit of this section winds up in the follow-up section, so I have a traveling guideline, but I still have my stationary here to make sure I'm good. I have two guides I can check, bang, bang. As I go, my section gets wider, wider, and it travels down the side of the head. It's literally that simple. Now, because I've been holding this horizontally, I need to cross-check it. One thing that we've learned about, and hopefully you learned this during barber school, if we're cutting horizontally, we need to cross-check vertically. So towards the end of this haircut, I wanna make sure everything is even. I'm going to hold it up this way. And when you're dealing with really curly hair, you wanna do all this point cutting and stuff, right? Because you wanna look like a master artist and you wanna be really cool and you wanna have like some pizzazz about you. Curly hair putting texture in curly hair, putting your fingers at unnecessary risk, point cutting that particular type of hair is stupid because it's not going to make any difference. One day the curl is going to lay one way, one day the curl is going to lay another way. So just hold it straight and cut it. Now, if we don't know how to hold scissors, I'll show you guys real quick. We're going to take our ring finger on the dominant hand. 2 fingers are going to go over top here. Pinky is going to go on the tang. All right. German shears don't have a tang here, which I don't know why, because that would suck to cut hair like that. So I would never want to do that. And then we want to try to move our thumb. It's not the most important thing. When we're cutting the top, it looks something like this. Fingers, shear. So we want to learn how to palm the comb real quick. We're going to cut, put the comb in this palm, cut, lift, boom, comb, here, here. You don't have to be doing this flip it backwards, flip it forwards, flip it sideways, do all this stuff, poke yourself in the eye. This is the bullshit that goes on in the industry and it drives me nuts. Only thing you really want to do when you're cutting hair properly on top with the scissors, you're either holding the hair with a comb or you're holding it with your fingers, but you're never going to set it down. That's going to cause you to have to go back through and find your guide. So if you notice, I almost always have the hair either held in my fingers or I have it in the comb. Comb, fingers, comb, fingers. Now, when I have a stationary guideline, not a big deal. But when I'm following a traveling guideline, it can get a little bit complicated. And there are techniques that are going to help you build weight, graduate the hair, do other things, but it's typically not really done too often on men's haircuts. You're just not going to see a ton of people looking for bouffants walking in and pompadours and all this other stuff. And there is ways to do that using my same system. Instead of doing the Mohawk guideline at 90 degrees, I could elevate it. I could over direct it. So now I have this section here. Every time I hold it up, I'll just follow my same guideline all the way down the head. It's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, so don't make it complicated. Real quickly, I'm just going to show you guys the example. I'm following the center guideline in the middle. I'm working it out towards the ends, and as I move through this, my guideline is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm going to do this on the left side, then I'll jump to the right side. Little by little, all the way through. I can come from the back to the front, from the front to the back. It doesn't make a difference. I have that stationary guideline right there in the center. I was also using a lot of new Johnny B products for doing this. I actually was using a product called Code B. Code B has 10% hemp oil. It's sort of like a product mixed with water that really provides a good lubrication to the shears. And then I'll go through, I'll cross-check it, and that'll be it. Now, there is something in the bangs that you need to be careful about. And I'm going to try to show it to you the best that I can real quick, but I covered this really, really clearly in how to cut the top. If you guys want to skip this section, you can. As I finish up the rest with the razor, we're going to talk about that for a second. But one thing that you need to do, if you notice, I never include that front portion that's attached to the bangs. I never include that in my first section. I always section behind the bangs and I get all that hair to fall forward. I do the rest of my haircut. I consider this the interior. I consider that part of the exterior. So when I get to that section, I'm going to comb it down. I'm going to cut it wherever I want, wherever the client wants. If it's on the eyebrows, below the eyebrows, whatever, don't matter. Whatever that length is, it's got to stay there. That's your exterior perimeter. If I hold that up and I just chop that into my interior length, I might be cutting the bangs shorter than I want to. So in that case, what I'll do, I'll tip them this way. I now have the bangs cut. I have my interior cut. I'm going to pick it up here. If that means I have to tip the comb here to blend it in, I will. A lot of times it's just going to be a straight little cut that goes across the top, and I'll pick those up in pie sections. So it'll look like here, 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 here. Simple. Don't make it complicated. Don't recut the bangs on accident when you lift it up. Okay, let's just start with how do we hold the razor. There's a big advantage to holding it properly. Actually, when I first started, I was a cosmetologist. I was dabbling around with the razor, and I got kind of comfortable with only putting 2 fingers here. One of the reasons why that's not the greatest is I don't have as much control. When I put 3 fingers on this side of the razor's handle, my pinky on the tang, then you're gonna see it's gonna be really easy for you guys to hold the razor. It's gonna be very easy for you to palm the razor and get it out of the way. And one of the things that we're gonna do is we need to make sure that we can stretch the skin for 1, and for 2, all the anchoring techniques that we discussed with the trimmer are going to apply here. 1 hand on top. 1 hand, I'm going to actually touch with my fingertips, my 3 fingers that are on top of that razor. One of them is pinching the blade, and the other 2 are actually going to find a purchase somewhere on the scalp. Now, all I literally have to do is make a very small, smooth motion going down with the razor. across the front of the hairline, you're gonna find it's actually pretty easy to do. When it gets complicated is in the C-cups. The biggest chance that you got to make a mistake right now is usually towards the end of the haircut. This is when we're going to use the razor, and this is when we're gonna do our final details and fix everything and send this client out the door happy. A man who's running a marathon, he sees the finish line, he starts running a little faster because he wants to bust through because he's ready to finish this race. And this is kind of what's happening to you right now because you're starting to see, yo, this haircut's coming together, it's good, I got another customer waiting, I feel some stress. You have to know that this is a moment when you need to slow yourself down. You don't want to make a mistake here after all this work. So we make sure that we use some type of shaving cream, shaving gel. I'm using the Johnny B one. I put it all over the area I plan on shaving. Now, the complications when it comes to using the razor usually are around the C-cup area. That's where you're going to have a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out what to do. One side, for me, I'm right-handed, so that means the right hand side of the client, it's going to be really easy. I could start from the top with the tip of my razor and come down, although I never really do that. I actually like to stand directly behind the client, pull the skin this way, and anchor on their chin and cheek, and I use the tip of my razor to pull underneath. That cuts sort of against the grain, across the grain. It gets it really close, and it's very easy for me to control that. I can do the same thing on this side. I just come over the top of the client, and I use the tip of my razor to do this. Now, you can also go down here. These are the ways that you can anchor, still using your middle finger, still finding a good place to anchor. And when we touch the blade to the skin, we really want to reduce the tension. I'm not jamming this blade into the side of their head. I don't want to cut them. You're going to cut a lot of people when you do razor work. A lot of barbers are like, oh my God, I've never cut anybody. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. We've all cut people. I cut somebody like 2 days ago. It's going to happen a lot by accident. So you need to do things that are going to caution you that prevent some of these cuts from happening. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we anchor, and we want to make sure that we have a sharp blade, and we also want to make sure that we really reduce our tension when we're doing this. You're going to see when I shave the face, I got all kinds of different tricks. We're not talking about that today, but a backhand stroke is what is typically necessary for here. When I do the eyebrows, which I always do in every service, I'll typically start with the client's right eyebrow. I'll move towards the center, and then I always will flip it around and do a backhand. A backhand stroke is going to be a lot easier for me to get it into that area where the eyebrow is. His left eyebrow is going to be more difficult for you. So that's something that I always use. And most men, they don't want their eyebrows to look like two toothpicks. Most men just want the center cleaned up, maybe a little bit of touching on the top, maybe a little bit underneath the eyebrow, but most men don't like you to go too crazy on their eyebrows. In fact, we had a situation in the shop not too long ago where a barber, he went a little crazy on a client's eyebrows, and it was funny as hell. Dude was a good sport about it. But at the end of the day, people don't really want that. We want to just gently clean that up. So now, the last thing that I'm going to do is caution you when you go through your haircut, the last few little touches and taps, this is when we want to have probably a taper blade. We want to probably have maybe a magnetic motor. They're super forgiving. They're not going to cut super fast. And we want to go through, use the mirror, look for any dark spots. But one of the biggest things that I've found super helpful is actually using my cell phone during this part. I'll pull out my cell phone. I'll turn on the camera. It's going to over sharpen the shit out of the image. It's going to make it look terrible. If you have any mistakes, you're really going to see them through your cell phone. Sometimes they're not visible with the naked eye. I put it up there. I look through my haircut. I like what I see or I don't. I go in there. I fix it. I might use shear over comb. In most cases, I might use a texturizing shear and do shear over comb. I might use just the tip of the shear and actually break up a section. But above all, I need to make sure I'm moving slow. I know that I want to speed up. I watched Thigala in the golf tournament. It was his first ever golf tournament in the PGA Tour. He was winning. It was incredible for a rookie to be winning. And he was hitting the ball so hard because his adrenaline was through the roof towards the end of that round. And unfortunately, he didn't win. Don't let that stuff happen to you guys. Just be patient. It takes the time it takes. I don't care if it takes you 45 minutes, 50 minutes to do a fade. In the beginning, it's going to take much longer. It's okay. It takes the time it takes. Some clients are going to be able to get it done quick. Some clients, it's going to take you a while. So I hope that you guys appreciate all the work that went into this video, all the thought that went into this video, the whiteboard, the presentation, the whole nine. But most of all, I hope that you've learned how to sort of troubleshoot some of your work. I know that we've touched on some things that you may have never heard of before. If so, drop it in the comments, man. Show me some love. And this video will be set to members only soon. So I hope that you guys enjoy it while you got the chance to. And if you guys want to become a member, I'm trying my best to grow my membership, because if I have enough members, I can do a lot of content like this. And you guys are going to get early access to other videos as well. So with that being said, this is the YBA. This was one hell of a lesson. And if you made it this far, man, you a real one. You a real one. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Oh, and good luck to whoever's going to win that JRL shaver. I'm checking out the comments, man. I'm looking for some love, all right? You got to be a member to win, and good luck to y'all. Peace.